Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, in the last class we had been looking at image tags and how to code an image. And I explained that you need to use the width and the height and the alt. And the importance of the alt tag is it helps out the non-human users of your web page. What we're going to look at today is how we code a list, but there's just one or two things I want to dispense with first. We saw that you can use bold and italics in your HTML, and we had B and I. That something is in bold doesn't really tell you anything other than it's in bold. And that something is in italics doesn't tell you anything other than it's italics. Strong and M for emphasis, they tell you something slightly more subtle. There's more information in there. Now, it may turn out, and typically most browsers will represent strong and M as bold and italics. But can you see how putting something in bold is very literal? You're just talking about the style of the text. Whereas when you're saying, I want this in strong, that says somehow that it's important. And so there's a subtle difference there between bold and strong and between italics and emphasis. That is to do with the physical layout rather than the logical markup. And this is something we'll return to again. But can you see how saying that I want this to be emphasized has more meaning in it than just I want this to be in a particular, typographic style. So we'll return to something like that. But anyway, strong and M are preferable to bold and italics. There are some special characters as well that you may need to use. So ASCII, the standard code for text, the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, has been around a long time. There were a number of different ways of coding text. So we know, for example, you may see this in one of your other classes, that uppercase A has an ASCII value of 65. So there's a table that maps numbers, that maps bit sequences to letters. That's fairly arbitrary, in fact, and there were a number of competing systems. That was fine once computer systems didn't have to communicate with each other or didn't need any interoperability. But once interoperability was required, they had to come up with a system, a standard system. So that was called ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. That was a particularly Anglo-centric system in that it didn't account for any characters other than the ones that occur in English. So if you're writing in French and you need to do an acute or a grave, or if you're writing in Irish and you need a fada, which is acute, there are issues there. So that's a problem. So for those special characters, like if you want to say España, the ñ there is because it's an ñ, it's not an n, it's the n with a squiggle over it. You may need to account for those. Also, if you're writing in Irish, obviously, you need to know how to do that. So to do an n with a squiggle over the top there, the ñ, you have to say ampersand NTILDE semicolon. And then the browser will interpret that as this other character. And it'll just display then the n with the squiggle. Or an E acute, you say ampersand E acute semicolon to do an E fada, as we call it in Ireland. Because the less than symbol is used to start a tag, whenever we see the less than, the browser is going to think it's opening up a tag. So if you want to actually say less than, you need to do ampersand LT semicolon. So if you're a maths lecturer coding HTML, you need to know that. So you can do your, if A is less than B. And of course, because we use ampersand to mark the beginning of these special characters, these HTML entities they're called, well then of course if you want an actual ampersand, you need to do ampersand AMP semicolon. So, so the word cafe, for example, with the acute E, you'd need to know how to do that. There is no English spelling for Dunleary. It's always written with the Irish spelling, so you'll need to do your fathers. So some of these are unavoidable, even if you're not using foreign languages, because you live in a country where, one of the official languages uses them. So you'll need them. You can also use their number. So you can say ampersand hash and then the number of the character and semicolon. See, the problem is that ASCII is fine if you're using the standard English characters, but if you stray beyond them, it gets a bit vague. So different countries have different implementations, which is why sometimes if you get a text message from someone in France in French, you'll find that the characters with the accents might be screwed up. It actually gets quite complicated because if you do use foreign characters in your text messages, it may trigger 2 bytes per character instead of 1. And so some Gaelscoileanna, for example, have found that when they're sending web texts to the parents, they take 2 messages instead of 1 because they're twice as long as they thought they'd be. Because any one of them, a strange character can actually trigger a whole different way of coding them. But that's an aside. But it is a problem. So the way we get around that problem in HTML is we have these sequences here for the non-English characters. So you need to know about those. You won't need to know all of them off the top of your head. But I suppose off the top of your head, you should know the ones that allow you to write in one of the official languages of the country you live in. So you need to know the acutes for the fathers. There's one for the euro symbol as well, for example. And there's one for copyrights. So you can look those up. They're HTML entities is the way to Google them if you want to find them out. Any questions on those?
Yeah, generally these are just going to be included in text.
Yeah.
That's not going to be actually included in coding, is it?
If in the text you want to say, no marker there now.
It's not a mark, it's highlighted, you can try it.
Yeah, I do it on a piece of paper, okay? Can I have a?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to say,
It's not very good.
if you want to say cafe, okay, you'll say C-A-F.
Copy and paste.
Yeah, that's going to be mine on the end.
Can you copy and paste? Like if for example, if you write in Irish or in Spanish a lot and you know the shortcuts on your keyboard to call them up, that's no good. Because that'll work on your machine. But when that goes somewhere else, you're relying on that place having the exact same coding system as your machine. And the problem is that it's not standard. ASCII is only standard for the first 127 characters, and after that then it's all bets are off.
What we're looking at, maybe referring to.
So that's what it would look like in the text. So CFAE father, or acute E, would be CAF ampersand E acute semicolon. And that's one of 2 right ways to do it. The other way is you can use the numbering system. So it has a number somewhere on a standard table that you can use. But if you do CAFE father, it may work on your machine, but it might not work on someone else's.
But if you're copying and pasting, it's going to be, say, you've got Microsoft Office, and you just type in CAF and it automatically brings up the little so then you're just going to copy and
When you paste that into your HTML, it'll be wrong.
What would happen if on another computer?
It could come up as CAF squiggle or CAF happy face, or CAF, epsilon. It could be anything. It might even be CAF father on a good day, but it might not. If it goes wrong, it'll go horribly wrong. It won't, it'll either be E father or something completely weird. It won't be E anyway. Okay? So you need to do that for fathers, ampersands, so if you've got a menu and you say gin and tonic and use ampersand for the end, you can't say ampersand. You have to say ampersand AMP semicolon. So like I said, if we lived in a country where English was the only language, you might be able to say, well, I can get away with not knowing that. But like I said, for Dunleary, for example, there's no English spelling for Dunleary. And there's a whole bunch of Polish characters as well. I actually had I had a handout actually with these, and there's some Polish ones on it as well. But you may need the Polish ones as well, obviously, if you live in Ireland. Any questions on that? Now, it's also possible to check your HTML to see if it's correct. So you can go to validator.w3.org, and you can either copy and paste, or you can give it a URL, or you can upload a file. But this is a syntax checker for your HTML. And it's really, really good because it can tell you exactly what you've done wrong. And it's important for your HTML to be compliant with the standards. One, because if it's not, I'll screw you when you get your marks. But also, it has an impact on the value search engines place on your site. If you've got incorrect HTML, the search engine will conclude that you're not a serious operation. Maybe you're some prince somewhere who's inherited millions and you need someone's bank account details to transfer it or something. You're not a serious operation. If you can't get your HTML right, you're an amateur. And so sites by amateurs would probably rank lower than sites by professionals on the Google sort of setting. So it's one of the things Google would include in how it sees your site. But also, like I said, if it's wrong, also you will do poorly in your assignments. So 2 reasons. Now, what we're going to look at today is lists. So, there are 3 kinds of lists we're going to look at. We have ordered lists, unordered lists, and definition lists. I'll put these somewhere where you can find them, so maybe it's more important just to understand. And actually, once you understand, you won't even maybe need to write it down because it'll just make so much sense. Because it's only, 2 or 3 tags. So we start an ordered list by saying OL for ordered list. And at the end of the ordered list, we have /OL to close it off. And so you use an ordered list for a list of items. LI, I like to think, stands for list item. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that suits me. That's how I remember it. So we're saying New York, and then /LI to end that list item. We're saying LI to begin a new list item. London, then /LI to close off London. LI, start a new list item. Paris, and then /LI to end that list item. And the same for Munich. LI, Munich, /LI to close it off. So you notice there that every tag that opens gets closed. We have an OL, so we have a corresponding /OL, and for every LI, we have a corresponding /LI. What's interesting about an ordered list is that they're numbered, but it's the browser puts in the numbers. So the browser might decide, for example, to use 1, 2, 3, 4, or the browser might decide to use Roman numbers. Might decide to use II, and 4 is IV, isn't it? It might choose to do that. That's something that the browser decides to do. It's possible if you were looking at the page in Dubai, it might use Arabic numbers instead of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Although actually those numbers, some of those numbers did, but it doesn't matter. The history of numbers isn't important. Okay. If you're looking at the page in Beijing, it might decide to use Chinese numbers. Or in Tokyo, it might decide to use Japanese numbers. If you're looking at the page in Israel, it might even format the list differently so that it's right justified instead of left justified. Those are all decisions that the browser makes. We just say, here's an ordered list, Mr. Browser. Can you please display that in whatever way you display ordered lists? So the browser puts in the numbers. So you notice there, we're not saying 1 New York, 2 London, 3 Paris. The browser knows it's an ordered list, and it's saying 1 New York, 2 London. It's putting in the numbers. So if you're doing an ordered list, or any kind of list actually, and you're saying 1 New York, 2 London, 3 Paris, then you're doing something wrong. Because if it's an ordered list, then make it an ordered list and let the browser put in the numbers. And if it's not an ordered list, then why are you putting in the numbers? So either way, you won't be putting in the numbers. Questions on that? Here is an unordered list. And we say UL for an unordered list. And then we have LI to begin New York, /LI to end that list item. LI begin the new list item, /London, /LI to close that one off. And here it's an unordered list. So we don't have numbers, we have bullet points. Now again, the browser decides how that's going to look. The browser does whatever it does with unordered lists. So it may be bullet points, it may be dashes, it may be stars, it may be shiny happy hippie faces, whatever. Okay? The browser decides that based on whatever way the browser is set up. Now we can see later in the module how we could change that if we wanted. But in terms of coding the HTML, it's important that you say to the browser, here's an unordered list. Here are the contents of the unordered list. Now you do with that whatever it is you do with unordered lists. You see people tying themselves up in knots. You know, it's an unordered list, but I really want them to be squares, not bullet points. Or I really want my bullet points to be pink. Like, get over it. Okay? You say to the browser, here's an unordered list, and then you let the browser do its thing. And it's the browser decides how to display that. So it's very important when you're writing your HTML to code it correctly and to code the structure of your content correctly, but let the browser do its thing. The browser does whatever it does. And you have to let go to some extent. If you do want to take control, you don't take control in the HTML. Your ordered list is always an ordered list. If you want an ordered list with bells on, you don't put the bells on in the HTML. You put the bells on somewhere else. And we'll see that later in the module. The definition list is a nice little one, and it's ideal for, definitions. Go figure. So here we're saying DL is for definition list. And then I like to think that DT stands for definition term. So it's the term that you're defining, maybe defining term or definition term, whatever. And then I like to think that DD stands for, definition or something. That's what I say in my own head. So you have a definition list, and then in it there are different parts. There's the term that you're defining, and then there's the definition of it. And you can see the structure of the HTML there. Once again, every tag that is opened gets closed. That's really important. And again, you start to see you've boxes inside boxes inside boxes,
So do you, how does the font look between the actual, you've got your title obviously.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. Here on the left, the way I've styled this, the definition is in, I think, italics, and the text is in the kind of, the term is in italics, the definition part is in regular text, and the definition part is offset a bit to the right. That's all stuff that the browser does. You don't ever say, I want a definition list, and here's the term, the DT, and then say turn on bold, and say, well, I want it the way it is, but I want it in bold. No. You just set up the structure. You say, here's a definition list, here's the term, here's the definition, here's another term, here's another definition, here's another term, here's another definition. Please, Mr. Browserman, do with that whatever it is you do with your definition lists. So it's like in the restaurant, no substitutions. You don't deviate from that. You just say, here's a definition list, now do whatever it is you do. And it may do it any number of ways. And as the web page's author, you might be a bit frustrated that a particularly stupid browser does it in a particularly lame way. But you have to go with it. You specify the structure of your content and let the browser do its thing. So lists can be useful for, well, lists of things. Just going to look at a page here. It's a page we've already seen. This is a page that had the image in it. And oops. And here we have my top 5 hobbies are, and it's an ordered list, and it says swimming, running, jumping, dancing, and sleeping. And if we look at the page, we can see, just a second now, it's a very big page. All the way over here. Let's go down. Let's ignore the pizza for now, the foods. Swimming, running, jumping, dancing. And you see that the browser has put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here in the unordered list itself. And look, if I change the order, let's say we have someone whose favorite hobby is sleeping. I'm going to save that. So, oh no. Okay. This is why you should never do these things live. Okay. So I'd have to save this now as a different name, and I'm not going to do that. It's just going to take too long. I didn't open up the file. I opened up a new one. So what it would do is it would put sleeping number 1, swimming number 2, running number 3, jumping number 4, and dancing number 5. So it would change the numbers. Okay. Now, let us now look at a nested list. I'm particularly fond of nested lists because I think if you get how a nested list works, you get how HTML works. I think everything you need to know about the structure of HTML can be summed up there in this nested list. So here we have Dublin, Cork, and Limerick. So there are 3 things in our list. But inside in Dublin, we also have Ranelagh and Rathmines, or Rinla, depending on where you're from, and Rathmines. And in Cork, we have Douglas, Bishopstown, and Ballincollig, and Limerick is on its own there. So here we have an unordered list with 3 things in it, Dublin, Cork, and Limerick. I'll put this somewhere now, guys, where you can find it, so don't worry about it taking it down so much. Worry about understanding it. So here we have an unordered list with Dublin, Cork, and Limerick. And inside in Dublin, we have an ordered list with Ranelagh and Rathmines. And inside in Cork, we have an ordered list with Douglas, Bishopstown, and Ballincollig. And what's important here is that we have the unordered list and then we start the list item for Dublin, and Dublin isn't finished until we've done the ordered list with Ranelagh and Rathmines in it. And only when we've done Ranelagh and Rathmines can we close off Dublin. And similarly with Cork, we've an LI to start the Cork item, but inside in Cork is Douglas, Bishopstown and Ballincollig. And only when we've done Douglas, Bishopstown and Ballincollig can we close off that list item with Cork in it. So here we have an unordered list box. If we were to start drawing boxes here now, and inside in that box there are 3 boxes. There's a Dublin box, a Cork box, and a Limerick box. And when we open up the Dublin box, we see inside there's an ordered list box, and inside in that there's Ranelagh and Rathmines.
Do you didn't sort of like slash PR yourself, or does it automatically adjust that?
It lays it out whatever way it does it. So every browser would put them underneath each other, but theoretically not necessarily.
Yeah.
But if you wanted more space between them, for example, it would be a bad idea to start putting in BRs. So you don't worry about the layout. You worry about the structure and let the browser do its thing, whatever its thing is. So the important thing here is the structure. That Cork has Douglas, Bishopstown and Ballincollig inside it. So that's why I've highlighted those in colour there. So you can see that the LI tag for Dublin is there, before Dublin, and the /LI comes way after all the things in Dublin and just before the LI for Cork. If you say UL, LI, Dublin, /LI, boom, straight away there, that's wrong. It's the easiest exam question in the world to correct. So you can tell straight away if it's wrong there. So I'm going to give you an exercise now to do with that. I left them printing, so I'll run back down to my office and come back with them.